Alright, so for this video tutorial, what I'm going to do, there's two options. There's another video I made that is using a software that's not After Effects. Now, you should be able to get the Adobe Creative Suite. So if you want, you can install Adobe After Effects. If you got that code, or if you already have Photoshop installed from the school this semester, you should be able to install this piece of software. Basically, it's a compositing and video editing program. It's a special effects. It's kind of a jack of all trades. But if you decide that you don't want to install this, or you can't install it, or you want to learn a different piece of software, you can watch the other video. And in the other one, I cover HitFilm, which is just basically a piece of free software that honestly I personally use. I do like this program better just because I know this one better, but the other one's really good as well, especially for free. So you can watch that video or to edit your film, or you can watch this one and do it in After Effects. You kind of have one or the other, depending on what you have available to you. Okay. Now, also, this is not a lab. I'm showing you how to do this so that when you finish your project, your short film project, you know how to actually make your thing a video. But you're not going to do this on what we've been doing in class and then submitting it for a lab. So don't worry about trying to do it on what we've already done. You should be doing this on your own film that you're working on for your last final project, okay? So this is just videos on how to complete that part. I don't want to give you like a whole nother lab to do. I figure you can just do it with this. All right, that being said, what you should have done at this point is this. Let me see. Desktop, and class materials, 3D, week 15. So when we were done in the last lab, the one that we did the lighting and rendering, I showed you how to light and render the scene. So that should be completed, and you should have in your images folder, if you rendered everything out, you should have an image sequence. So you can see if I open up this one, and I click the arrow, next, right? You can see that it's footage. Basically, it's every frame of your film, right? So I have this one shot that I rendered out, and then I had two cameras I did for the lab, and then I rendered out the other one. So you might have more shots, you might only have one shot. It's kind of depending on how you made your film, but that's the way mine's set up. I just have two shots, and that's it, okay? So we have those two things there, but obviously this isn't usable, right? I mean, it's cool to have these images, but they're not a film. You can't really watch them. So what we need to do is we need to take this image sequence and make it into a video. And so, like I said, we're going to use After Effects in this one. So I'm going to go ahead and you do File, open After Effects, and it'll have like a pop-up. Just close out of that, and then you'll see this. I'm going to go ahead and just do a new composition. And they have these presets. It's a whole bunch, a lot of them. We want to do the HD 720 25. Actually, yeah, we'll do HD 720 25. We don't actually want that because the 1280 by 720 is what we rendered, but you'll see, and the pixel aspect ratio is square. But I don't want 25 frames per second. That's pale. That's what they use in Europe, and that's just weird. We want 24, okay, which is film here, although that's actually probably changing too, for that matter. Anyway. So 24 frames per second, it's going to start off with 30 seconds, and our default background is just going to be black for now. That's all good. We'll hit OK. And now when you make a new composition, basically it's like making a new project, although you can nest compositions inside of compositions and such. So anyway, that's basically what we're looking at here. So that's basically our composition. So the first thing I need to do is I need to bring my footage in so I can edit it. Okay, so you're going to right-click in here and go Import, File. And then you want to navigate to the images folder of your Maya project folder. That's where your stuff should have exported out. If not, you're going to want to look and search and figure out where you exported it to. So for me, I got to go to there. So I'm just going to go there. That's not what I wanted. Okay, back. Class materials, 3D, 15, finish, images folder. And I'm just going to select the very first image. You'll see it automatically knows that it's an image sequence, and then we'll hit import. And that's going to bring it in. Great. So there's my first shot. Now I need to bring in the other one. So File, Import, File. And then I'm just going to select the first image of the second shot. So this one ends here, and it starts right there. So I'm going to select that one, Import. Okay. These are actually not right, because if you look right over here, it'll actually show that it's running our composition's 24, right? And we animate at 24, but it actually brought it in at 30, which is kind of dumb that it doesn't just automatically go. But that's just it's a setting you can set up. But anyway, it's at 30 frames per second because you gotta remember it's an image sequence. It doesn't have a frame rate. It doesn't, you know, what I mean, it's not embedded in it like a video would be. So we actually need to convert this. So I'm just gonna right click over top of the first piece of footage, go to interpret footage, and we're gonna go main. Then in here, I'm going to change the frame rate to 24, okay? It's also possible to loop footage, and you can do some other stuff in here too. But we just want to change the frame rate to 24. And I'll do the same thing here. Right-click, interpret footage, main, and 24. Now, if you have a whole lot of shots, you can actually right-click on top of it and go to interpret footage, remember interpretation, which you see is Control-Alt-C. And then I would just go here, and then I would do Control-Alt-V. So I would just click on this, Control-Alt-V, click on this one, Control-Alt-V, Control-Alt-V, all the way down. So you could format the one and then just paste that preference on the rest of them if you have a whole bunch of footage. But now you can see that the frame rate is now being interpreted the way that I so have desired. Okay, so basically all your footage goes in here. If you want to bring in audio, same thing, file, import, you bring in your audio clip and you would slap that on in there too, and you'd be good there. Okay. Now what I need to do is bring it in here. So I'm just going to grab my first shot. I'm just going to drop and drag it, and it's going to drop down here. I'm going to select the second one, drop and drag it, and it's going to be here. Now this is a little bit different if you've used video editors and not After Effects. Most video editors, what they do is that you can have layers of video, but normally, like your main timeline, like one video starts where the other one ends. So it'll go like where, see how this one ends right here? The next piece of footage will go up right against it. That's not how it works when you do compositing shots, because it's very much based on layers. That way, like if I have this one above it, I could go down here to, like, let's say the opacity and lower it, and you can see the one underneath, okay? It allows me to basically do a lot of the same kind of things that we would do in Photoshop, where you have multiple layers and I can composite them together, which is super important in 3D, because when we make 3D animation, when we rendered out this last time, what we did is we rendered out what we call a beauty pass. Basically, it means we just rendered everything out at full quality, and that's the way it was. Normally, if you were working in like a production, like doing special effects or whatever, you render out many passes of the same shot. So it would be the same exact thing you see here, but we'd only render out one aspect of it, and then we'd composite them. So we'd render out like just the character, and then just the background, and then just shadows, and then just highlights, and then ambient occlusion, and effects, and like we would put all the different things, and then in here I could bring them in and then adjust all those different aspects individually and apply, you know, color grading and effects and things like that all in the shot in here, and have more control over what the final imagery looks like. We just did a beauty pass. So this is super, like, this is what you would normally use for 3D compositing. Now, normally you composite in here and then you bring into to Premiere or whatever your video editor is. Personally, honestly, I never use Premiere because I just do it in here because I got to composite anyway. Why bother like bringing another program just to put the clips next to each other? So teach their own. But anyway, so if you look, they're right on top of each other. So I need to take this one and put it after this. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to hold down Shift and click and drag it, and you'll see it'll snap to the end there, and then it'll go to the next one. Now, if you had more than one shot, I'll just bring this shot down again, you would just basically stair step it. So it would look like a bunch of stair steps going down like that. I only have 2 shots, so we don't need to do that, but that's how that would work, okay? Now, it is possible to do all sorts of effects and things in here, so if you look, we can go down here, and they have your basic transforms, so like position, rotation, and scale, like we would see in 3D. And you can key those. You click on the little stopwatch, and then you would move like to a different time, and then move it somewhere. You'll see a little path of action here, and then you can kind of see that it blends from one to the other. And you can select, you can click and drag them to move them around. You can delete them. I don't want any of those. So on and so forth. Okay, so that's what those are. So we're not doing anything with that, but it's possible to do like puppet animation, things like that. A lot of TV shows and stuff are made using this, 2D shows and what have you. All right, so we have them in there. One of the things I don't like about mine is that if you look, the shots are too dark, and that was because when we did the lighting, it shows us the image as it being color. Oh, what's it called? It's it's being formatted when you view it when you're in the renderer, but when you render it out, it gives you the raw image, so it doesn't have a color profile applied, and so the actual render is being dark. But I kind of wanted to do that anyway, so I could show you how to fix it, and also gives us a reason to apply an effect. So I want to just fix this real quick. So I'm just going to go to effects, and you'll see there's a bunch of them up here. Go ahead and feel free to play around with them. There's ones that do like cool like particle effects, and there's tracking and all sorts of keying. So if you want to do chroma keying, like you got a green screen behind you or something, you can throw that in there. All sorts of cool stuff, and you can play around with it. And you know, this is a whole class in of itself. And in fact, actually, Cecil offers this. So there's in Video Production 1, I think they pretty much just use Premiere, and you learn about the cameras and stuff. But I believe in Video Production 2, they do a lot more with After Effects. So if you're interested in that, you can figure that out. Okay. But what I want to do basically is just go ahead and do, I guess, color correction. So we can see auto contrast. Let's do auto levels. Let's just do brightness contrast. It's a lot easier. So brightness contrast, it's going to give me these settings here. And then I can just up my brightness. So we'll just up the brightness a little bit. Like so. And I'm actually going to take the contrast down, which typically you don't want to do that. But if you look, my stuff is very stark. So I'm just going to do that. Okay, so we did that in the one shot. That's great. And then you see this one's also still too dark. Now I could do this. I could go to this one and then go effects, blah, blah, blah. Just so you're aware too, like here's the project, here's the controls. So if you got to get back to it. But if I click on this one, see how there's nothing in it? I got to be on the one that I want to do the effects. You can also get to it by expanding it. So if I collapse this, you'll see there's the brightness contrast. It is possible to key it here and slide them around, or I think it's a little bit easier in here. You can set keys right here, and then you would just move it around like I showed you earlier with the transform and stuff. Okay, so both spots are a thing. Okay, so, but I want to put on this one, so what's the easiest thing to do is I'm going to select it, Control-C for copy, and then click in here and Control-V to paste, and I'll just paste that effect in there. And voila, now that one's got the same effect. Yay! Now, let's say I want to just make it look like the monitor is like flickering or something, so the lighting's changing. Probably should have done that in the actual Maya, but we'll just do it here just for fun's sake, just so you can see how to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on brightness, and then I'll just move a little bit. I'm going to zoom in here. This zooms into the timeline and zooms out. And then what I'll do is I'll take the brightness down. We'll say here, and you can see it automatically creates a keyframe. I'll just go a couple over. We'll make the brightness up. Go over a little bit. Take the brightness down. And then we'll go over a little bit more and put the brightness back up. And we'll call that good. Just so you can see that you can key it. And there's the keys. You can click on them and slide them. You can hit delete and delete them. You can copy and paste them. It's real flexible. Okay. All right. So we'll call that good on the effects. So that looks pretty good. Let me back this thing up a little bit. But one of the things that's a little disappointing is it'd be nice if there was like a title. So I'm going to grab this and this, and I'm just going to slide these over around 2 seconds. We'll have 2 seconds of title here. Okay. So I'm going to go to Project. Let's right click, and actually not in there. Sorry. We're going to go to Layer, and I got 2 selected. Okay. Make sure you don't have anything selected there. Layer, New, and we're going to do a solid. Or actually, we don't need to do solid. If I want to do a color back here, I could do a solid, and basically it just makes a solid color, and you can choose what the color is going to be. But I'm okay with black, but if I wanted a color, I'd put it there. I'm just going to go ahead and do text instead. So it's going to give me a text layer, and then we'll just say, bad movie by a bad man. It's great. And then you see we have our text options over here, so I'm just going to go ahead over here, and let's go to paragraph. I want to center that. And you can change the font and all that here, so let's just do Arial, because I do Arial for everything. It's just easy. Arial bold. And let's change the size to, 48. There we go. Great. Okay. Just going to click back over here to get back on the regular tool, and we'll just make sure this is moved around like it's somewhat in center. But what you're going to notice is what it automatically makes when you do a solid, or when you do text, or when you add a new layer, it automatically makes it the full expanse. So I'm just going to back this all the way up and go to the end here. You'll see it turns into double arrows. I'm just going to click and drag and hold shift, and that's going to allow me to basically make it only go to there, and then the next thing will come across. Okay, so now you can see, yay, and yeah. So now we have our film, we'll say, okay? And you can do a lot more with this. Definitely feel free to, play around with it. Quite frankly, compared to, like, Maya or even Photoshop, I find this pretty user-friendly. I know I'm, like, flying through it, but it's just because we have classes that are dedicated to it, and I'm trying to just get you to the point where it's semi-done as quickly as possible. Okay, so we're going to say that is good. What I want to do, though, is if you look, right now it's rendering out 30 seconds. I don't need 30 seconds. I'm going to grab this little arrow here, the workspace here, and I'm just going to hold Shift as I grab it so that it snaps. Here we go, Shift. Okay, so now it's just going to play these couple seconds here, which is, acceptable. And then we want to render it. So we're going to go to Composition, and we'll do Add to Adobe Media Encoder. And that's going to bring up the Adobe Media Encoder. You can also do Add to Render Queue. But they've done a thing where, like, which I used to like that better just because it was quicker and easier. The Media Encoder is better, but it opens up another program. You have to put all these stupid settings in there. Before, with the Render Queue, it was right here, and you would just click on it, and it would just render it out of the program. Now it wants to send it over to this Media Encoder, which I think they kind of are universally using for Premiere and this and probably whatever else they have. Actually, you know what? They even use it for anime to export out videos. So if you give it a second, it should pop up here in your queue. Then once it's up here, we can adjust the settings and such. If for some reason, again, you don't want to download this Adobe Media Encoder, you should be able to just do Composition, Add to Render Queue, and then a little Render Queue thing will pop up down here, and you'll see it. It'll look kind of like this, but it'll be in another tab right here, and then you would just adjust the settings there. So I'm just going to click on this for where I want it to save to. You click on the name, and I'm just going to go to the desktop, and we'll just call it Sad Film, because that's what it is. Okay, and then I can click on this. Okay. Did I hit? I don't think I hit to render. I might have hit enter on the thing. I hope I didn't. I think it might be trying to render right now. Okay. Isn't this so much better? Okay. Alright, good. So I click on the match source, and then from here it'll give me options for settings. And you can set all sorts of stuff in here. Like all sorts of things. What you want to do is just make sure, honestly, the default should be fine. Do H.264. It's a good codec. Basically, it just means, it's almost like having like a JPEG or, PNG or Photoshop. It's a file. It's a way that it compresses it. But H.264 is a pretty good quality, and it makes it pretty small. So we're gonna go with that, and that should be probably fine. Just go with that for the settings. We'll hit OK. But just make sure it's that. When you're happy and you know it, you clap your hands, and then you go ahead and you hit play, and then it's going to go ahead and render it. Now, you can see it connecting to Dynamic Link Server. I think what this program's doing now is I think it actually does the rendering, like on, I think that's partly why you pay a subscription fee. It'll render on like maybe a cloud computer, and then it will, and so theoretically it would export out quicker, is my guess is what's happening. Because I've noticed that they've been doing that a lot with other programs as well. Like if you use Dreamweaver or Animate, they'll actually send out your stuff to their server, and then they send it back to you. Which in that case, I think it makes sense. This might make sense too, but it's obviously a little bit dependent on your connection speed. I would think. And if you were doing something super complex that was really, really large, probably it'd be great because it would be a lot more firepower than probably your personal computer. But obviously this is a very simple thing, so it's actually going to be slower doing it this way, but that's just how they do it now. And I'm going to pause it, and then when it's done, I'll show you. So whatever happened, it seemed to have like failed during the thing, so I just right-click and did duplicate. It made a second one, and then I hit play again, and then the second one worked. I don't know why the first one didn't work, but apparently it didn't. So if that happens to you, it somehow didn't make the link. Maybe, yeah, I mean, I don't see it. It only made the second one, so I'm not sure what happened there, but it's pretty dumb. Anyway, if you click on this, it'll actually should pop it open for you, or if you can just go look to see where your film is, you should see it right here. And then, okay, there it is. And then if I double click on it, you should see a glorious, glorious movie. I expect Pixar to call me any day now. Yeah, see, look at an error occurred. And then voila, that is just so great. You go, Zuckerberg. All right, so yeah, that's it. So when you're done with that, you've made your film, and that's good. So that's all you need to do. Good luck with that. When you are done, you want to upload it to the critique so that other people can see your film. And that would be it. All right, so good luck.